My name is Nina Bassett, and I've been involved in the Jewish community for a number of years. So I came here as a very young child, a young girl, straight after the Holocaust from Europe, and I was the first migrant child in our school. I didn't know a single word of English, and in those days there was no such thing as English as a second language. You just went to school and you hoped that you'd understand. Well, to us, when we arrived, it was of course an amazing haven. We had come from, something so horrific that I hope we never see it again, and we had lost most of our family. My mother and I survived, but my father, my grandparents, my uncles, aunts, cousins, they didn't survive. So for us it was a real haven. I still think it's a haven. I don't think we're without prejudice. I don't think there's a country in the world without prejudice, but on the whole, I think we managed to live in a multicultural society, in a more tolerant multicultural society than most people. So yes, there is some racism, yes, there is some discrimination. I think it would be foolish to say there is nothing, but I do think we are a better society than most. It's hard for me to say, because when you come as a child, life is much easier. I had my mother, who was a very strong influence and a very calm sort of person, so I had that advantage. I think if you come as a child and you get absorbed into the school system, the absorption is easier. I think if you come as an adult, the main challenges, I would think, are language, customs, and dislocation. Not to have the network that you've grown up with, not to have the people you've lived your life with, that you share your memories with, that will give you support when you need it. That is the hardest thing, I think. And I think you need to build that sense of community very quickly, otherwise you can get very lost. Yes, well, I think I spoke about advocacy being the representation of your group to achieve results and to achieve outcomes of things that are essential to your group. That's my summary of advocacy. And I think the first thing you need to establish is, who are you speaking for? You need to find out who you're representing. You need to find out what the needs of that group are, and more than that, speak in a unified voice. I think I mentioned, and a few people agreed with me, I mentioned at the dinner that if one group from your community goes to government, for example, and asks for something, and a week later another group comes and asks for something else, or even the same thing, neither of you are going to have credibility. If you join together and come in one voice, you have a lot more credibility. You can say with an open heart, we speak for all these people. And then you get listened to and you become more effective. I think that's the crux of it. But the crux also is to understand your own community, especially with yours, which is so diverse. Diverse in language, in culture, in religion. It's a very diverse community. So to try and bring together some sort of agreement as to what you need is not easy. It's not easy. I'm not trying to make it sound easy. But you need to talk to people, you need to understand them, you need to consult, and you need to feel passionately enough and strongly enough to get them to come to a consensus, because it's the consensus that gives you strength. Be generous with your mentoring. Be very, very active in encouraging younger people, because they have the energy and the drive. And try to find the things that you have in common, not the things that divide you. There may only be one or two or three things that you all need, whatever country you come from, whatever language you speak, whatever religion you have. You all need good education for your children. You all need access to social security and more knowledge about what social security is available. You all need to try and change public policy so that the community doesn't discriminate against people from Africa. These are common needs. If you can't come together on other needs, come together on the common ones and agree to work together on those. You may not be able to work together on everything, but come together where you can, and that will give you the nucleus or the start for a communal leadership group. We don't overcome it. You can't. You can't. You know that old joke. You get 2 Jews in a room, you'll have 3 opinions. So there is always a tension. The thing is to try and bring people along with you by consulting with them, by listening respectfully to them. Don't dismiss their ideas. You might have an agenda in mind. They have a totally different agenda. Between the two of you, you might be able to achieve a consensus agenda that benefits both of you. Always walk away from a discussion with a win-win. Not one person should win everything and one should lose. Always aim for a win-win situation. I wish I knew that answer. I wish I knew that answer. I'm, not a young person, and I've experienced racism, and it never gets easier. It never gets easier. I think education is one of the best tools. If people get to know each other, they see that we are all people. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you believe. You can always deal with each other because we have a common humanity. And I think to try and teach the public about the common humanity, this is important. I don't know, you'll probably know more about this than I do. I believe there's an Afro Hub happening next week. Now, this is wonderful because it's happening in the middle of Carlton. I think it's Carlton.
No, it's
or Brunswick. Federation Square, I'm sorry. It's happening at Federation Square. It'll bring a lot of people in. Your community will interact with people from the street, just walking off the street.
Yes.
That's how you get to know people. That's how you get to understand each other. The biggest cause of racism, of anti-Semitism, of any sort of divisiveness is not knowing, not understanding, because it's a natural instinct to be frightened of what you don't know and what you don't understand. So the more you can communicate with each other, the more we can all talk to each other, the less one hopes there will be racism. I'm not so naive and so stupid as to think we can get rid of racism, we can get rid of anti-Semitism. We've had anti-Semitism for 2,000 years or more. Why should we suddenly be able to get rid of it? You can't, but you can make the situation more tolerable. And the other thing that you need to do, and this is where advocacy comes into place, you need to advocate to government to help you in this project, to do education programs, to change policy and to change communal attitudes. Attitudes can be changed. I'm repeating myself, but wherever you go, whether it's to government, whether it's to funders, whether it's to sponsors, wherever you go, go with a united voice. Because if 5 of you come for different things, you'll get nothing. If 1 of you comes representing the 5, you will get some of the things. Don't divide yourself. The more you divide yourself, the less help you get. I know it's hard. I know what I'm asking you is very, very difficult, but we found that there is the strength in numbers and in uniting. I hear what you're saying. This is why I said to you before, there's no way you're going to be united on all things.
Yes.
But find out the things you can unite on, advocate for those together, and then clearly each community is going to have specific needs. And those specific needs obviously are going to have to come, the advocacy is going to have to come from those groups.
Yes.
And that is inevitable and unavoidable. You have to do that. How you get the funding and how you get the money is by persistence. Just being persistent, by learning who your members of parliament are. If you live in different areas, each one of you learn who your members of parliament are. Set up visits with them. Don't be shy. You get nothing for your community by being shy. Ring them and say, I need to speak to you, I need to meet with you. And if enough of you do that, you will build up a network where you can make a phone call and be heard. And that takes a long time. It takes a long, long time. It's not something that happens overnight, and you've probably already found that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting that you ask me that question. I have some very strong views. We are a people who've existed for millennia. And all those thousands of years, the thing that we have valued above everything is education. So we are a people who has always, from the very earliest days, there was a school. From the very earliest days, there was a prayer hall. From the very earliest days, there was a burial society. We created these structures and we learned to support each other. More so once we were dispersed from Israel, we had to support each other. In a lot of communities, there were very, very many occupations that were closed to us. You weren't allowed to study in certain places, you couldn't practice certain professions, you couldn't do a lot of things. So we could only do some things, and those things we learned to do very well. But it's always been through education, through support, through finding a different way of solving a problem. And we've had to do that. And part of it, and I know some of the younger people laugh when I say that, part of it is we study our religious books, we study the Torah. And when you study, you don't just study it and learn it by heart. That's not how we study our religion. We analyze it, we discuss it, we argue, we torment the answers out of it. So we are taught to think logically on the one hand, to enhance our memory, but we're also taught to think analytically and critically. And if you bring those qualities to life, it takes you a very long way. There's no secret, there's no magic. It's just education, hard work, a lot of thinking, having to learn how to overcome problems and drawing the positive lessons from that, not giving in. We have a lot more things in common. We have our religion in common. Now obviously there are different aspects of that religion. There's orthodoxy, there is the progressive part of it, there are various aspects of the religion, but basically it's the same religion. We have a common language, the Hebrew language. Not everyone speaks it, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people can read it even if they don't speak it, because most of our prayers are in Hebrew. We have the common culture, a common history, and we have, and this is tragic, but we have a common history of persecution. And that teaches you survival techniques. So there is all that commonality.